Hello and welcome to another episode of Friday's Fragrant Quiz. This week it's all about flabbergasting facts from fragrance history. Say that after a few glasses of rosé. Are you ready for a whiff of the bizarre? So this week's Fragrant Quiz dives into the weird and wonderful history of fragrance, uncovering some truly flabbergasting facts. Question number 1. In ancient Egypt, what unlikely ingredient was sometimes used in perfume? Oh yes, it really was. I fact-checked it. Question number 2. In the 16th and 17th century, what method was used by some European nobility to avoid bathing? On to question 3. Cleopatra, obviously the famous Egyptian queen, or rather infamous, had a rather extravagant way of announcing her arrival. How did she use fragrance to do this? Question number 4. Moving to Victorian times, what surprising item did some Victorians carry to mask unpleasant smells? Question number 5. Ancient Romans were known for their love of bathing and public bathhouses. What fragrant ingredient did they often use in their bathwater for its cleansing and refreshing properties? Are you writing this down on your pen and pad, on your pad with your pen? Whether it's with a pencil or a fountain pen, make sure you've got your answers written down. The answers will be coming at the end. And there is a bonus question. And if anyone is getting married or going to a wedding like I am next month, then the bonus question may be quite interesting for you. Question number 6. In some parts of Europe during the Middle Ages, there was a decline in frequent public bathing compared to Roman times. What was a common misconception about bathing that contributed to this shift? Question number 7. During the Renaissance, gloves became a popular fashion accessory. But what surprising material was sometimes used to line these gloves and add a pleasant scent? Question number 8. In 18th century Europe, what unusual ingredient was used in some face powders to lighten the skin? Thankfully, we don't use this anymore. It's like when people used to put asbestos in their roofs. Oh my gosh. That was question number 8. Don't forget, you can rewind, pause, or whatever you want to do. But please get to the end. I do love recording my Friday's Fragrant Quiz, and it's important that you enjoy it too. Otherwise it's pointless me doing it, because otherwise it's just me sitting here alone at my pink desk with nobody listening. That's just too sad. Question number 9. The Victorians were known for their love of symbolism in their floral arrangements. What did a single red rose traditionally symbolise in a Victorian bouquet? Quite easy, that one, I think. Question number 10. During the Middle Ages in Europe, what fragrant material was not only used in religious ceremonies, but also believed to ward off evil spirits? And I use this still today, because I do believe that it can. In fact, after reading this question, I haven't burnt it for quite some time. I am going to do it now. Well, after the quiz and after I've given you all your answers, otherwise it would be a really, really long episode if you're waiting for me to burn my whatever it is. I'll tell you in a bit. Bonus question. The tradition of brides carrying bouquets at weddings date back centuries. But what were some of the original symbolic meanings associated with these floral arrangements? So how did you do? I hope you got, have you at least written it all down and answered it? I mean, you know, The joy is in the taking part, isn't it? And not the winning. But here we go. Let's go back now to question number 1. In ancient Egypt, what unlikely ingredient was sometimes used in perfume? And it is batshit. Yes, I'm not kidding. Believe it or not, bat droppings were used in some ancient Egyptian perfumes. It was believed to have cleansing and medicinal properties, adding a unique and thankfully not long-lasting element to their fragrant concoctions. I wouldn't recommend you try this for health and safety reasons, and it might just turn you batshit crazy. Who knows? That's a good name for a scent, though, isn't it? Question number 2. In the 16th and 17th centuries, what method was used by some European nobility to avoid bathing? And the answer is perfume-soaked pomanders. Frequent bathing was not fashionable in some European courts. And notably, they used heavily perfumed pomanders, which are little balls filled with fragrant herbs and spices to mask any unpleasant odours. Mandy Aftel, the natural perfumer based in Berkeley, California, who has been in Vogue and Harper's Bazaar and Forbes magazine, actually sells little pomanders, the little tiny little balls of wool. If you don't like wearing fragrance on your skin, but you enjoy the scent of a particular perfume, you can get little balls of wool. You can either get these ones from Mandy, or you can make your own or buy some little wool. I would recommend just pure 100% wool, and spray it or put little drops of your fragrance onto these little pomanders and carry them around with you. You know, perhaps hanging off your handbag or inside your bag. Be careful not to put it on silk and make sure that they dry first. But yes, you can do that. But I was talking before about bathing. Now, they do say that you have natural protective bacteria on your skin. And if you bathe too frequently, you're removing this. So I tend to have a wash, I call it a French douche, a shower, and I use a cloth and soap and water in my private parts, not in, but around and under my arms and, you know, other places where it might normally smell. And then I just have a shower, a long shower once a week. So there you go. So the next time you see me and I smell a bit, you'll know why. Question number 3. Cleopatra, I don't wear antiperspirant deodorant either because of the facts about the aluminium in it has been linked to Alzheimer's. And anyway, question number 3. Cleopatra, the famous Egyptian queen, had a rather extravagant way of announcing her arrival. How did she use her fragrance to do this? And she used scented perfume. Well, she used to scent her sails with perfume, rather. Scented perfume. Now, there's one for the scented books, isn't it? Scented perfume. Ooh, you could do that. Do you go sailing on catamarans? Perhaps you could start selling, if you're into, you know, making your own fragrance brand, a scented perfume that can announce their arrival, like Cleopatra did. I went on a catamaran once years ago when I was at college, when I was very young, 17-year-old, and I was nannying for a very snobby couple, and they used to go sailing, and they gave me a lesson with their instructor on a catamaran, and it's the worst thing. I couldn't walk for a week because you have to hang over the side. Oh my God, it was a horrible experience. Anyway, I digress. Cleopatra, that's her new name. Cleopatra reportedly had the sails of her ships perfumed with rose and other fragrant oils, so that as she arrived, the scent would precede her, creating a truly unforgettable entrance. And it was said that she used also violet, which was one of her fragrant flowers, and Napoleon actually lay them at her grave and planted violets at her grave when she died, because it was her favourite flower, and he would keep a violet in his locket, also the story goes. Question number 4. Moving to Victorian times, what surprising item did some Victorians carry to mask unpleasant smells? And the answer is vinegar-soaked handkerchiefs. They were known for their emphasis on proper etiquette and hygiene. However, public sanitation wasn't always ideal. I mean, literally sewers running down the streets, open sewers. So to combat these unpleasant odours, some Victorians carried handkerchiefs soaked in vinegar, a natural disinfectant with a pungent aroma. Yes, I think I would rather smell a handkerchief soaked in vinegar than raw sewage floating down the street. Goodness, and they had such pretty shoes in the Victorian days, didn't they, you know? They were like wandering around in all this sewage. That's probably why they rode around in these horses and carts. Anyway, question number 5. Ancient Romans were known for their love of bathing and public bathhouses. What fragrant ingredient did they often use in their bathwater for its cleansing and refreshing properties? And the answer was olive oil infused with herbs and flowers. The Romans valued hygiene, and public bathhouses were a central part of their culture, and olive oil was readily available and affordable. And they would infuse this oil with fragrant herbs like rosemary, lavender or myrtle for a refreshing and cleansing bath experience. Question number 6. The question was, in some parts of Europe during the Middle Ages, there was a decline in frequent public bathing compared to Roman times. What was a common misconception about bathing that contributed to this shift? And the answer is that some people believe that excessive bathing could weaken the body and allow diseases to enter through the pores. While the idea of water being directly absorbed into the bloodstream, because this is what I read somewhere in a museum in Grasse, that they actually believed that bathing in water, they could drown because they thought that the water would get through their pores, and if it got through their pores, they would get into their bloodstream and they would drown, so they actually stopped bathing. Now, this is what I read in a museum, but it's not really the only reason. It's also they believed that bathing could leave their body vulnerable, and this combined with the decline of Roman public bathhouses and the rise of Christianity, which sometimes viewed excessive bathing as a form of vanity. Wow, never knew that. This led to a decrease in public bathing practices, and perfumed powders and other cleansing methods like scraping with metal instruments called strigiles. I told you I get this off Galaxy Gemini, but I do fact check them. And these became more common alternatives to actually bathing. And I wanted to do a research and, see if this brought about the rise of perfumed powders, but it didn't. So there you go. I thought that was why they invented beautiful fragrant powders, but maybe you know more than I do. Question number 7. During the Renaissance, gloves became a popular fashion accessory. What surprising material was sometimes used to line these gloves and add a pleasant scent? And the answer was ambergris. Ambergris is a waxy substance produced in the digestive system of sperm whales. While it has an unpleasant odour when fresh, it does smell a bit like poo. Aged ambergris develops a rich musky fragrance, and it was and still is a prized ingredient in perfumery, but more so in those days. Now they don't like using animal products. And some Renaissance gloves were lined with it to add a touch of luxury and fragrance, but that's where the tanning industry went into decline in Grasse, because they used to make gloves that were made out of leather that has a horrible stench, and they would develop fragrances to cover this stench and perfume these gloves. And then the art of perfumery took over the art of tanning leather, and the tanning industry died a death, and the fragrance industry was started a revolution in Grasse. Question number 8. In the 18th century Europe, what unusual ingredient was used in some face powders to lighten the skin? Never use this. It's lead. Lead carbonate, also known as Venetian cerise, was a popular ingredient in some face powders in the 18th century. And while it did lighten the skin, it was also highly toxic and could cause serious health problems. No shit, Sherlock. Thankfully, safer alternatives were eventually developed. No wonder they all had such short life expectancies. Goodness me. We're nearly at the end. Question number 9. The Victorians were known for their love of symbolism in their floral arrangements. But what did a single red rose traditionally symbolise in a Victorian bouquet? And there is no surprise here. It symbolised romantic love and passion. Victorians used flowers extensively, and their meaning depended on the colour and the type of flower. And the single red rose was a bold and clear message of romantic love and passion. And if you want to look at florography, it's called, this shows you the symbols of different flowers and the hidden meanings behind each flower. So next time you get flowers for somebody, you can now give them with intention if you just research florography. Question number 10, and our bonus question is actually related to that. Question number 10. During the Middle Ages in Europe, what fragrant material was not only used in religious ceremonies, but also believed to ward off evil spirits? And the answer is frankincense. Frankincense is a dried resin derived from boswellia trees, native to Oman and Somalia and Yemen, and it's been used for centuries in religious ceremonies and rituals. It has a beautiful smoky balsamic aroma, and it was considered sacred by many cultures, including the ancient Egyptians and Romans. In the Middle Ages, frankincense wasn't just used for religious purposes though. It was also believed to have protective properties, warding off evil spirits and illness. And I burn frankincense resin on hot charcoal. I have a video on my YouTube channel, The Scent Academy. It's a shocking video. It was the very first video I ever filmed, ever. It's my first video on YouTube. So you'll have to do some searching. I don't know what it's called even. I've got a really weird voice, like a squeaky voice, and all you can see is my husband's hairy arm lighting the frankincense because I was too shy to go on camera. Oh, it's hilarious. It shows you how we evolve over time when we learn things. So here is our bonus question. Back to the frankincense, actually. I burn it because I actually really do believe that it gets rid. People sage their houses. I use frankincense instead of burning sage. And I really do believe it works. And I'm actually going to go and I have a little tiny little altar where I have resin, frankincense resin. I have some from Somalia and some from Oman, and my friend went there a year or so ago, and I asked her to get me some frankincense, and she did, and she got me some beautiful pieces of it. It varies the colours from very light grey to a very warm ambery brown, and you can get different sizes as well. And yeah, if you burn it on the charcoal, wait until it smokes. Watch my fabulous video on YouTube. It'll show you how to burn and use the frankincense around your house. And I burn it in every room. And I do believe that it really works. I did it one time for my husband, and he never used to he's always been a bit poo-poo, yeah, whatever, it's airy fairy stories up there with the, the rainbows and butterflies kind of thing and the pot of gold at the end. But he didn't really believe in it. But then he really needed this job at one time. We were in, not so financially lucrative time for us, and he had a job interview. It was incredibly important that he got this job. It was a really good opportunity, and what I decided to do is convince him that it was a good idea for me to burn frankincense around the house, but also around him and his laptop, etc. So I burnt this frankincense, and he went for the interview the next day, because I didn't want him stinking of frankincense at the interview. He went for the interview the next day, and they offered him the job like after an hour of the interview, and then he started the job the next week. Now, is it coincidence? I don't believe so, and I've done it before for other things, so I'm going to go myself now and go and burn some more frankincense, but not before I reveal the bonus question answer. And the question was, the tradition of brides carrying bouquets at weddings dates back centuries, but what were some of the original symbolic meanings associated with floral arrangements of brides? And the answer is that the bouquets carried several purposes beyond aesthetics. They often included a mix of fragrant herbs and flowers. and they were believed to symbolize fertility and new beginnings. Certain flowers and herbs were associated with fertility and a prosperous marriage. Again, probably going back to the florography. But also they were used to ward off evil spirits. The strong scents of some herbs were thought to offer protection from bad luck or misfortune. And the third one is that white flowers, often used in bridal bouquets, symbolized purity and innocence. But over time, the focus has shifted more towards the beauty and the fragrance of the flowers, but the symbolic meaning remains a part of the tradition for many brides today. For instance, if you're into royal weddings like I am, it's a tradition that they always have lily of the valley in their bouquets, and perhaps other flowers as well. So there you go. That's it for this week's Friday's Fragrant Quiz. No idea what the subject will be for next week, but I'm sure it will be just as fascinating and batshit crazy as this one. Until next time on Friday's Fragrant Quiz, stay fabulous, stay curious. A bientôt.